Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson were called to investigate the mysterious disappearance of Michael Arthate, a well-known horror writer who had recently purchased the Blackwood Manor. The locals whispered that the manor was cursed, and those who dared to enter it never came out again. As Holmes and Watson arrived at the manor, they immediately noticed the airy atmosphere and the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. The manor was in disrepair, with broken windows and overgrown gardens. They entered the house and found it to be dark and empty, with no signs of Michael or anyone else. As they searched the house, they discovered Michael's diary and letters detailing the strange and terrifying events that had occurred in the manor. They read about the stolen African mask and the curse that had been unleashed upon James Blackwood, the manor's former owner. Holmes was fascinated by the case and decided to investigate further. That night, as Holmes and Watson were settling into sleep, they heard scratching noises coming from the fireplaces. Following the sound, they found themselves on the second floor, where they discovered a secret room that had been walled up and plastered. Inside they found a nursery, and upon further investigation they discovered a birth certificate indicating that James and Catherine Blackwood had a child, who had died shortly after birth. As they continued their investigation, Holmes and Watson encountered strange and terrifying occurrences. They heard strange noises, saw ghostly apparitions, and felt a sense of dread that seemed to permeate the manor. Holmes became convinced that the curse of the African mask was real and was responsible for the disappearance of Michael Arthate. Finally, after a long and terrifying night, they discovered the truth about what had happened to Michael. He had been taken captive by the monstrously ugly man who had been living in the secret prison in the basement. The man had been driven mad by the curse of the African mask and had been preying on anyone who entered the manor. After discovering Michael's captivity in the secret prison, Holmes and Watson quickly sprang into action. Using their combined physical prowess and clever deduction skills, they were able to overpower the monstrously ugly man and free Michael from his clutches. As they made their way back to the main part of the manor, they noticed that the stolen African mask was still missing. They quickly realized that the curse that had been unleashed upon James Blackwood was likely tied to the mask, and that they needed to find it in order to put an end to the curse once and for all. With Michael's help, they searched the manor from top to bottom, but the mask was nowhere to be found. Just when they were beginning to lose hope, Holmes had a sudden insight. He remembered a strange carving he had seen earlier in the day and realized that it must be a clue to the mask's whereabouts. They raced back to the spot where Holmes had seen the carving and began searching the area. After some time, they discovered a hidden chamber behind a false wall. Inside they found the stolen African mask, as well as a book of ancient African spells. Working together, Holmes and Watson were able to decipher the spells and use them to break the curse that had been placed on the Blackwood family. With the curse lifted, and Michael safe at last, they left the manor, determined never to return to the scene of such a terrifying ordeal.